Thou art the living boy,
Uttava Kumari,
Kumari,
and also the little girl,
and also the little girl.
Tang Jirno Dandena Vanchasi,
Come,
thou art the old man walking with a cane,
Thou art the old man walking with the cane.
Tang Jato Bhavasi,
Tam Chato Bhasi,
and thou art born again and again,
and thou art born again and again.
Vishyato Mukha, everywhere in different forms.
Everywhere in different forms.
Tameva Mata cha Pita Tameva, Tameva Bandhusya Sakha Tameva, Tameva Vidya Darinam Tameva, Tameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Read the English.
Thou art to me, O Lord, the affectionate mother, constantly looking to my well-being. Thou art to me the compassionate Father, whose care and counsel always guide and sustain me. Thou art the faithful friend, ever standing by me in my trials and temptations, and the loving companion to share my joys and sufferings. Thou art my wisdom, my love, yea, thou art my all in all, O Lord Supreme.
Jananim Sardanam Ramakrishna Jagadguru Padapadame Tayasvitva Pranamami Guru. Taking refuge in your lotus feet, I salute again and again Holy Mother Sarada Devi and Sri Ramakrishna, our teacher. We are very happy to have with us this morning two Prabuddhaprana from the Sarada Math, India. They were invited to the Chicago World Fair as lecturer, and so to this evening it is not a formal gathering, it is just to meet some of our devotees. Pr.Vivekaprana who is sitting at the head, she is the assistant secretary of our Delhi center, Delhi Sarada Math. She is a very qualified speaker, as you shall see tomorrow. Tomorrow she will be the speaker in the main temple. And this evening we did not want to miss hearing Prabuddhaprana, Prabuddhaprana. So she will speak this evening. No specified subject has been given to either of them, as you shall see in the signboard. They will speak whatever they think. But I wanted very much to hear Swami Prabuddhaprana, who was very unwilling to speak. But she is a very qualified nun, and we shall have the opportunity to hear her, not too long a lecture, it is a substitute for our Saturday evening class. Half an hour or so she will speak. If there are many people, then we shall go to the main temple. If there are too many, then we shall go to the library, as we do for Saturday class. That is better, Saturday class, in the library. at 7:30. Now we shall do the Brahmarpanam and begin eating, and it would be very nice if the Prabrajikas tell us something of the history of Sarada Math, how Swami Vivekananda, even when he was in America, he was very keen for the women's work, for the women's math. He gave preference to the women's math, to the men's math. He had always in his mind. So that came true during Holy Mother's centenary. And she can give us a little idea of how the Sarada Math came into existence. Now we shall say Brahmarpanam. Om Brahmarpanam Brahmamir Brahmano Brahmanamritam Brahmayeva Tena Gantavya Brahmakarma Samadhina Hari Om Tat Sat.
Can I get you some? Yes, thank you. If you catch, you please. I'll do
What's what? Did you say Brahmarpanam?
Yes, Swami. We can say it again.
Would you pass it?
How many assistant secretaries do they have?
Assistant secretaries.
Only one? Isn't enough?
There's another person who is also, she's not officially assistant secretary for the conference, but it says think how many assistant secretaries. We have one assistant secretary. Did you have the impression that we had more? We have a president.
Yeah, maybe she would rather have juice than coffee.
Mary, you had been to the Chicago Parliament? Did you hear Swami
Pr.Vivekaprana, yes
Huh?
I did.
You heard her.
Yes, very inspiring. Very, very inspiring. Swami, maybe they would tell us about the history of Sarada Math.
Yes.
Maharaj, should we tell them while we're eating, or do we finish and then begin our discussion?
No, you go on today. Go on simultaneously. Eating will be automatically slow as you speak.
Nowadays, devotees know about the existence of Sarada Math in this country. When I was at the Ramakrishna mission, before I joined, one time there was a class, and after the class there was some discussion and questions, and some woman got up and asked, "Swami, can a woman become a Swami?" And she was so timid about it, it made me really angry. But anyway, now people know that women can become Swamis or Pravartikas, as we call ourselves.
What year was that, Mataji?
Oh well, it must have been before 1976. I don't know when it was. Sometime in the 70s, early 70s.
called Swami as well?
No. We are called Pravartika instead of Swami. And the meaning is someone who has left her home, who wanders, who's
It
gone
has
out.
the same meaning as Swami. Means one who has renounced the world, or one who has taken to the path of spirituality.
But when we address Pravartikas, we call them Mataji. As in India you call the Swamis Maharaj, we call them Mataji. We haven't figured out what we call them in this country.
The same, I think. Same.
Well, as Swami was saying, Swami Vivekananda, when he was in this country, after the Parliament of Religions, he had thought of the idea of actually beginning an organization. Even before that, he was asked by Sri Ramakrishna to keep together the group of his disciples. But he actually formed this idea of organization when he saw the organization in this country. And in 1894, a year after the Parliament, he wrote to Swami Shivananda that he wanted to start a women's mutt first, even before the men's mutt, because he realized the importance of women in the role of educating the world. Swamiji's work was not just to form an organization, but the organization had some function in that he was to change the consciousness of the world, to teach Vedanta so that the masses would be able to grasp Vedanta. And he felt that for the regeneration of the world in this work, it was necessary to educate women, and so that women would take this a more important role even. And he was so eager to start the women's mutt that he was lecturing all over America, and he really gave his life in this country. He worked so hard, and lecturing everywhere so that he could get enough money to send to India to start this mutt, women's mutt first. But when he went back, what he started was the Belur mutt in 1898, and at the same time, Sister Nivedita, his disciple, started the women the women's work in the Nivedita school. That time it was called the Ramakrishna School for Girls. And it was actually from the Nivedita school that the women's mutt found its nucleus, though it seemed to be much later. If you look carefully at the history, there was an unbroken connection with the Nivedita school. At first, Nivedita trained some students, and later Sister Christine came and helped her. There was one very prominent student, Sister Sudhira, whom you may have heard of. You may not have heard of her because she died very young in an accident. She had such a strong personality that they say that if she were to command them, the students, they would go in front of a tiger. And she had so much courage herself that at the age of 16, she went on foot to Puri. At that time, to protect herself, she wore a sannyasin's robe and walked to Puri. She was really fearless. And it was she who encouraged the person who became our first president of Sarada Math, Prabuddhaprana, who was at that time Sarala. Actually, she was born Parul. She encouraged her to leave her home because she didn't want to marry, and really took her responsibility. And you probably read in the Holy Mother's life about Sarala Devi. She nursed the Holy Mother and was her attendant in her last days. And the Holy Mother encouraged her to learn nursing, which was unusual in those days because at that time girls didn't come out and get any education at all. Sarala Devi also left her home and had the protection and support of Sister Sudhira. And she was a student at the Nivedita school and met the Holy Mother through Sister Nivedita. She received initiation from the Holy Mother. And when Sister Sudhira was in a train, she fell from the train. It was just after the Holy Mother's passing away. She was going to Benares on a pilgrimage, and she was actually between the cars of the train, and it suddenly jolted, and she fell out of the train and died. And she was still quite young at that time. But Swami Shraddhananda said that the reason she fell out of the train, it seems so easily that she just fell out, that she had a vision of her chosen ideal and lost her balance. But
Come this side, there is chairs there.
Sarala Devi, she learned to live a spiritual life really from Sister Sudhira, who took her everywhere. She took her to Vrindavan, where they did austerities for some time, and she lived a very austere life. After Sister Sudhira and the Holy Mother were gone, she went to Benares herself, and she did austerities for 27 years. And Swami Saradananda gave her sannyas. I think it was in 1912 that he gave her, or I'm not sure, 1912 or 1916? Later. Oh, after Mother's passing away. And then it must have been in the 20s. She was given sannyas by Swami Saradananda, tantric sannyas. But she wore white clothes. She didn't wear altar clothes. And that prepared her for being the first president of the Women's Mutt. Before Sister Sudhira, in 1910, Sister Sudhira wrote to the wife of Sri Aurobindo that letter we published in our magazine once, that she had heard that the Holy Mother would be the center, or she would initiate the Women's Mutt, and she would be the leader of the Women's Mutt. Of course, the Holy Mother didn't do it herself while she was alive, but then she was, at that time, wondering when the Women's Mutt would begin, because she heard that it would, and on whom the Holy Mother would bestow her power. And it turned out to be Prabuddhaprana. Her name at sannyas, Swami Shraddhananda gave her, Sri Parati, and so she was later given the name Prabuddhaprana, Prabuddhaprana, by sannyas in the which was given under the Ramakrishna order when the mutt was actually formed. In 1951, some property was bought on the opposite bank of the Ganga, as Swamiji had wanted, and that was to begin the Women's Mutt. The first batch of women, 7 women, received brahmacharya vows in 1953, the centenary of the Holy Mother. And then in 1954, they began to live at the mutt. The mutt was opened by Swami Shankarananda, who was then the president of the Ramakrishna Mutt. And in 1959, they all took sannyas. A group of 8 took sannyas. And from that time, the Women's Mutt became an independent organization, completely independent of the Ramakrishna Mutt at Belur, financially and administratively also. And the president of the Women's Mutt gives initiation and brahmacharya vows and sannyasa vows. And it's the only, the first independent women's mutt in the history of the world. Because, as you know, in other religions, the women's organizations, the convents, are ultimately under the authority of men. But it was Swami Vivekananda who said that only women could solve women's problems. He said, who are we to solve their problems? So that's how now the Sarada Math has 20 branch centers in India, and we have a center in Australia, Sydney, Australia. The president of the center, the Math in Australia, also gives initiation, being a center outside of India.
What's the age limit, sister?
24 is the age limit. Sometimes they make exceptions if people are qualified or for some particular reason. But they accept the people from the ages of 18 to 24. Yes?
What about women who are older than 24 who feel very drawn to
Well, if they're much older, if they're a little bit older, they still may have a chance of joining. If they're much older, they can work with the mutt. That is, they can do work for the mutt. That we sannyasinis can't do our work alone. There are few in number. There are about 150 sannyasinis, and of course maybe an equal number of brahmacharinis. But the ideal of this mutt is that we would work with householders. Of course, householders have more means. The sannyasinis have the training and the direction, but the householders are the people who have the means and who are in the world, so they can do a great deal. And so we work with them. The ideal is that we work together. And so we have many devotees who work in our mutts, doing all kinds of work. We run a women's hospital in Calcutta, and we still have the Vedanta school. And we run other schools, elementary schools, and we have a college, a women's college in Calcutta, a residential college, and a cultural center, and many other institutions. We have a Bengali magazine and also an English magazine, The Sunday.
Is there a record of how many children are actually being served at any one time in schools all over?
There is, but I never added it up. We have a bulletin, and in our report, in our Sarada Math and Ramakrishna Sharada Mission report, it's given how many children attend each of the schools that we have, but I haven't ever added them up.
It must be thousands.
India is a huge country,
Yes,
so quantitatively I don't think it adds up to much. It is the quality and the novelty of the idea. It's a very original kind of a service that the centers are rendering to the public. Since we do not do it with the idea of helping people only, it is a means of our own tapasya also. So it is the quality of the work that counts.
As it's true here in America, the same thing. All of you devotees are contributing in the work of the center here, and so it can go on. Here is one Swami and his assistant. So without all of you, the work couldn't go on. And the same has been true in building up all of the centers in this country since the beginning. It's the devotees who are doing a great deal of work, and so the work of the mission can go on.
And especially the women I would like to add, because Sister Nivedita was an English woman and Sister Christine was an American. They helped to start. It isn't as if India has not produced great women, but we have never had organized religion or organized activity for the public, which is a specialty of the West. And Swamiji was tremendously impressed by it, by the organizing capacity of the Western woman or man, that he asked for help from Sister Christine and Sister Nivedita, who started the first nucleus of the women's work in India.
Are there any plans to start one in America?
Pardon?
Are there any plans at all to start a Sarada Math branch in America?
In America, we haven't received any invitation as to that. We do not go on our own. We are always invited to start some work somewhere, and there has to be some kind of a nucleus before we can go, because each center has to be independent. It isn't as if the mother body sort of helps to start. What they can contribute is only the human labor. The rest there has to be some kind of a nucleus before we can start a center.
The headquarters would have to be assured of some means of support.
No,
Or
it
some
isn't
core
only
people.
a question of means of support. Support, I didn't mean financial
No, but people
side
have to
only.
be there.
But there has to be a nucleus of people who, who can assure us that yes, this kind of a center would be useful in some particular way.
So in Sydney, Australia, there must have been...
Yes, there was a group. They invited, they wanted a center, and so we sent one Pravrajika, 2 Pravrajikas, and now there are 3 plus one or 2 girls have joined from Australia itself.
The way that center was started, actually, one woman opened a bookshop. She was interested in Vedanta. She opened a bookshop, and that attracted many people. And so through her contacts, a group began. And then Swami Shraddhananda went there, and so the group became more solid, and so there was a request after some time. So very often a project is started, some group, study circle, bookshop, or some core of devotees.
Do you feel that there is a necessity here in this country? Because there are so many Vedanta centers already.
Possibly San Francisco.
The women's movement has given some impetus to such talks.
Some women actually are drawn to Vedanta, but end up in a Buddhist feminine. You know, someone that is an abbot is the woman, and they want to be under a woman. So they are drawn to here, but there's not that situation. So
Well, is that a passing phase, or is it something you think is
Yes.
permanent?
I think the women's movement is going to demand it eventually that you come. You know, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the feeling I get is very strong.
You think that Americans are ready for that?
We think so.
I don't know, I feel really deeply about it.
Shakespeare said the readiness is all, so we'll see what happens.
Plant the seed.
Finally, it depends on the Holy Mother whether she wants it or not.
When you said that Holy Mother passed her power on to, I forget the name, was it a formal thing the way Thakur passed his power on to Swamiji? Was there an actual event there?
No, we can't say. We don't know of any formal...
No, the Holy Mother made a statement to Sarada Devi, who became our first president, when she expressed depression that everyone was going away and she didn't want to continue. She told her that you have work to do, my work to do. So that can be called something like telling her that in future. And Swami Shraddhananda also told Prabuddhaprana ji that there is work to do. And at that time, in 1926, when Swami Saradananda passed away, there was no idea, no sign of any such movement. So that shows that they knew that in future such a thing would come about. And Sarala Devi passed almost 25 years in individual tapasya in Benares. And she was called upon, when she was called upon to take the responsibility of presiding over this Sarada Math, she was not willing, because she said that I don't belong to this time. By that time India had undergone many changes, and most of the pioneers today, they are still at the head of the movement. They were highly educated, having passed through schooling and colleges, the so-called modern education. So she felt very diffident of presiding over such an institution where all the college and university women are going to take the lead. But she was assured that what she had to give, none of these modern women had. And it was true, because she was the direct link between the times of Sri Ramakrishna, the Holy Mother, and the modern times.
How many women Swamis are there now?
About 150.
That's good.
Altogether, we are about 250. Every year, at Holy Mother's birthday, sannyas and brahmacharya is given.
Do you have plans to go to Europe? Are there any
Pardon?
invitations? Are there any invitations to go to Europe?
Vivekaprana has been invited to Germany and Holland a few times, and invited again also.
I've been twice to Germany and Holland. And there are groups there also in various towns like Berlin, Essen, then a place called Dortmund, Frankfurt. They also want a center, not necessarily a women's center. They want a Swami also. These groups are keen. Everywhere there is a great desire for spiritual life. Whether people go to Buddhism or to any other path, it basically shows that people are looking for something. And there is no rivalry as such. It's only that, as Sri Ramakrishna says, God has provided various paths for various temperaments.
Sister, from your point of view now, do you think that the Vedanta is growing in Europe? Or in the West? I want to use the word West.
Well, it would be too much to say that I have understood what is going on in the West by this 1.5 month stay. But I can say that the people I have met are very sincere and very keen to know more. But on the whole, I don't think I am able to say anything. Because I haven't moved about alone, which is the only way to find out whether people in general want it or not. I have moved from center to center and met people who are already acquainted with Vedanta. But if you think of the sentiments that are expressed in all the gatherings, religious gatherings, then if that is a sign, they all use the same language, they are all talking about different people wanting different ways to God, and that is basically Vedanta. It says that there is not just one way to evolve. Basically it comes to evolution. There's not just one way, there has to be many, because people are so different. And there is no question of competition or conflict. Basically there is no question. If we understand it, if we don't understand it and base it on our human nature, or I would say what we understand of life right now, there are many avenues of conflict. But the more you evolve, the more you understand that people are different and therefore they need different paths. And that is growing. That's growing all over the earth, not only in Europe, it's all over the earth.
One thing Sister Nivedita said at one time, that for a long time, she said, these ideas that Swamiji has put in the world, Swamiji means Sri Ramakrishna and the Holy Mother also, that these ideas will quietly seep into the world. She said, for 150 to 200 years, it will be very quiet, and then you will see some big change. So it's very soon now. It may be too soon to make any judgment about it.
Where was that recorded?
Where did I read that? Something that Sister Nivedita herself said, I think in a meeting. I'll find out for you. It's something that I read that she had said at a meeting. Now it may have been in America. She said it there was a Free Religious Association at that time that she spoke at. I think that she might have said it there or at some other meeting.
And she was quoting Holy Mother?
No,
Oh,
no,
I see.
she was saying, predicting this herself,
I see.
that it would take another 100, from that time, 150 to 200 years before these ideas really blossomed in the world. That for some time it would be very quiet and seem as though the ideas were forgotten.
Yes, I have read it too. I think she writes it in a letter. For 100 years. We have to remember that the whole of this movement is like an unfolding of some kind of a drama, where the principal actors in the beginning predicted a lot of things which came to be true. So now, because we are face to face with the ordinary people like us, who haven't the power to predict, it seems as if the movement is not gathering force. But if you go to the source, you will see that there hasn't been a let up, or it hasn't dried up, and it hasn't slowed down either. It's simply expanding. It's very apparent in India, because in India there is a great demand and a great desire to understand what life is about, and that is because India is passing through very trying times in every way, and people are in tremendous distress, physically, mentally, in every way, economically. So there is a tremendous desire in this country where externally everything is very comfortable, and still there is such a lot of discontent, which shows that people do want something more. The next step, after we have looked after ourselves physically and made ourselves comfortable, why should there be discontent? That shows that something is awake, and it is propelling us to look for the next step, next dimension. Otherwise, if man had been physical, he should have been completely satisfied with physical desires being completely satisfied. We should have come to an end, but we haven't. And it's all the more that instead of being content, we are more discontented. It shows that now it is the next dimension that has to open up. And how will it open up? By seeking in various directions according to our own tendencies. So that way man is tremendously awake today. The very fact that people are so keen to experiment with so many lifestyles, that itself shows that there is tremendous vitality.
And if you look in any bookshop, now the number of books on religion are increasing. On all kinds of religions, and particularly, I think, Oriental religions and Native American religion, that people are much more interested than ever in this country, if you judge by the number of books that are written on the subject.
So
Yes, and the courses offered in colleges and universities.
One could say that the time has come when people refuse to take religion on faith and they would like to experiment themselves. So it is a tremendous step towards, should we say, democracy in religion or personal experiments. Nobody wants to take anybody else on faith. And though there's a contradiction, we would like to be comfortable in religion also. We would like to have somebody on whom we can give the whole responsibility and go scot-free. But because that is not possible, that is why there are so many, we jump from one to another thinking that maybe this will be easier than the other one, or maybe this will give me more exotic experiences than the other, till we settle down to basic understanding that religion is personal discovery and it doesn't really help to leave one and take another. Wherever you start, you have to dig deeper in the same direction.
Where are you going from here?
We'll be going back to San Francisco and then to Boston.
On the 1st, we go to Boston. Vivekananda will speak in Boston and Providence on the 3rd of October, and then we go back on the 5th.
So what centers have you visited since you've been
Almost all of them.
Yeah,
here? Yes?
yeah. We couldn't get to St. Louis and San Diego, and we haven't visited Berkeley yet, but we might. We could still visit Berkeley. But
You go
otherwise,
right by
we
it, you
have
go back
seen
to-
every other center.
Pardon?
You go right by Berkeley when we go back to
Yes,
San Francisco?
yeah, we can go to Berkeley. But those two centers we haven't visited. And Seattle Center we wanted to visit, but there was just not enough time.
You have
So
visited
we didn't
San
go.
Jose.
No, San Jose also. That's true.
It's spreading.
So there are 4 that we know. I think 4 then.
Did you visit Olima?
No, we're going to Olima. Day after we get back, we go to Olima.
You've been to Thousand Island Park and Ridgely Manor.
And Camp Percy in New Hampshire, where Swamiji stayed with the Liggets. And then we went to Niagara Falls also. Then we went to Boston after that. We went to the retreat center. At that time, the Boston Center was closed for the summer. We stayed in Marshfield. And then we'll go back that way. And then we saw the centers in New York also. The Vedanta Society was open then because the Swami was there, so we visited that center. The other center was closed. But we met the Swami from the center on the east side there in Thousand Islands. And then, of course, we went to Chicago and Portland. We went to Arizona also, where there was a group of devotees there.
Was it Texas Center?
There's a group in Texas. There's a group in Indiana. There's a group in this Western Washington group. There's another group in Washington.
There's a group in Michigan who want to do stuff.
Yeah, there are so many all over the country, but we can't go to all those places. We didn't go to the Toronto Center either. But there was just not enough time.
That was so close to
Yes.
Niagara. We drove up from there when we went to.
Yeah, there was not enough time. We were driving from Thousand Islands.
It's just too much.
Yeah.
You just can't spread any further.
I think we did pretty well for 2 months.
Now how do we get you to come back in a year or so?
Send a ticket.
We also went to the centers in Southern California. We visited Santa Barbara, Hollywood, and Trabuco. We saw Swamiji's house in Pasadena.
Hollywood.
Hollywood, yes.
San Diego.
San Diego we didn't get to because we met the Swami from San Diego, who's in charge of that center, but we couldn't, there was just not enough time to go to San Diego, out of the way. Yes?
Well, Pr.Vivekaprana had mentioned that to gauge the extent to which spirituality had taken hold in this country, you'd have to travel by yourself and meet people. I was wondering, how would you do that exactly? I mean, even if you were to be
No, it was just a thought because saying that I know the people. The only way to know the people is to live with them, to sort of move with them. Otherwise, you can't pass a judgment on people as such. So that is why I said that unless one travels alone and meets the common man on the street, it's not possible to pass judgments.
Would you be more or less incognito, look like everyone else?
No, I don't have any plans.
If you were to do it.
Well, at a visit like this, it wouldn't be possible. See, Swamiji knew Americans.
He did it.
Because at that time there were no devotees and groups of devotees. He met the people, all different kinds of people. When he taught in his his rented rooms in New York and other places, he met all kinds of people. Even the poor people. He traveled in the buses. And
Pardon?
Those were the people that were interested because they showed up for a lecture on religion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
The man in the street.
and you should read his judgments on this land, which is tremendous, because he expected this land to solve certain basic problems. So that means he did see deeply. He thought that the problem of the woman is going to be solved on this land, and to a great extent he thought the problem of the common man will also be solved here. And there are signs of that. No other country, having achieved the amount of luxury that this land has, became discontented so soon. If you read the history of the world, yes, if you read the history of the world, you will find the Roman civilization simply went to ruin because they never crossed the barrier between luxury and something else, the new dimension, or the other ancient civilizations also. Indian civilization is the only one which goes to the zenith of power and then again goes down and again comes up. But the rest of the civilization, having achieved tremendous prosperity at the material plane, usually went down the drain. And this is the only land where I find tremendous discontent. That shows that you are ready for the next dimension. This is not enough. And this is not enough is showing in so many ways. So many ways. By the tremendous restlessness, by the movement, the speed, the desire to move, the desire to change lifestyles, the dangerous experiments that are being carried on by young people on their own, at their own risk, at the risk of their own bodies. So these, to me, it seems that these are the signs of tremendous desire to break the final barrier and go to the other dimension of consciousness at whatever risk. So, and there are certain individual instances. I read in the Geographic magazine after St. Helens erupted, that there was a scientist who went to the tip to see what it was like while it was erupting, and he went on giving, what do you call it?
Reporting.
Went on reporting till the very end, and he vanished. That shows tremendous courage. Tremendous courage.
Americans are very devoted to duty. That's one of their traits.
That's tremendous courage. That's the type of courage that one needs to transcend the ordinary level of consciousness. And so you can say that the ground is ready, only thing is they do not know what the next step should be, that it is to come from within. It is a very difficult thing to look at yourself and believe that yes, there are tremendous dimensions within myself, and for that I have to sit down and close my eyes, because after you have achieved so much through activity, the desire is again through activity, to achieve something through activity. How to put a stop to this activity and move inwards, it's not a very easy thing. It's a very difficult thing. And if you read the religious books of India, again and again you come across these words that a person who would do that has to have tremendous courage. I mean, they don't say only purity. They could have said they need tremendous purity, moral purity. But side by side they add, they need tremendous courage. Because to transcend physical space is so difficult, to transcend mental space would be much more difficult. And you can find that instance if you read the life of Swami Vivekananda, who was given this experience by the touch of Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna touched him and immediately he found that the whole world was vanishing. And he said, "What are you doing to me? I would rather be ordinary." So that shows that, and Swami Vivekananda did not lack courage in any way. So that shows that it is something that needs tremendous courage. So if you go by that, the ground is ready.
Mataji, what would be the first step to slow down? Since we are all moving so fast.
It's not a question of slowing down. It's a question of realizing that experience, human experience, what exactly can it give me? Can it give me what I am seeking? And that is happiness or joy. If I seek happiness and joy, how can speed give it to me? How can inanimate things give it to me? Because happiness is not something physical. Once you have reached a level of mental understanding, happiness is something very, very flimsy, very intangible. So how do I get the intangible through the tangible? It's not possible. This is the misconception. We think that we will get the intangible through the tangible. Tangible means something that I can see. And for that I think the best way is to study this organism itself. What is it supposed to give me physically? Physically it's supposed to give me objects. Mentally it is supposed to give me some kind of a satisfaction or joy. But what am I seeking? I am seeking something that will complete, that will give me a sense of fulfillment. And that can be possible only when I have understood myself totally. So it's a turning back towards oneself, which is very necessary today. What is this organism made for? The physical organism is made for physical comfort and we have it. So we should stop right here. We don't. That shows that there is something more to me. Mental. Well, we have achieved tremendous intellectual achievements also. There is tremendous poetry, there is tremendous science, everything is there. And still, there is something lacking. So that shows there is another dimension to me. So this turning back to myself and understanding that there is another dimension which is waiting for me to be discovered. That is the, I think, next step. So that will slow me down immediately. If I understand that there is something I have to discover, in order to discover, one has to slow down and pay attention. The moment you pay attention, you are automatically slowing down, you concentrate. But this thing has to be taken on authority or in a way it is something that one can understand intellectually also. That this organism itself is forcing me to go deeper, either in this way or in this way. In this way we have gone deep enough. Now we cannot, all of us, travel to the moon and travel to the outer space to exhaust what is there in space. And if we have a little common sense, we can understand that nobody can exhaust the physical space. I believe it would take how many? 300 years to go to the nearest star or something like that. So I'm asking for the impossible. It reminds me of a story in our Puranas. There's a beautiful story. There was a king who wanted to go to heaven in the body. And the Guru told him, don't ask for such foolish things. And he won't believe it. So he went to another rishi and he made it possible with his own concentration, and he is always hanging in the air. He neither reaches that nor comes down, and he is always hanging. He's supposed to become Trishanku. Trishanku means somebody who is hanging. So if you are asking for that kind of a foolish desire that I should go break the barrier of space and time in this way, physically, then I'm asking for the impossible, because the body is not made for that. So there has to be another direction. What I'm looking for is another direction. So the other direction exists only within. And we can satisfy ourselves as to whether there is that direction or whether that's an illusion. If it is an illusion, we should be satisfied with the physical and shouldn't ask any more questions. If there is, we should move in that direction. Isn't it logical? So satisfy yourself with common sense. Is there any other direction or not? And if the mind says there is, then you automatically slow down and pay attention.
Acha, you are very tired. Now take a little rest and then entertain us with one song.
Oh,
She is a very good singer, voice. Take a little sip of coffee.
Whereas they won't understand what is the use.
Huh?
They won't understand song in Bengali.
Oh, yes, they
Oh,
understand
they
very well
understand.
the Pr.Vivekaprana.
They know many Bengali songs. You want to hear a specimen?
Yes.
Are there sufficient people to sing Jagat Jure? Huh? What?
Do we start from Nayana Duti or?
No.
And I don't have a book.
Nayana Duti Mere Kabe Parana Have Kushi Je Pata Diya Chaliya Jao Shavare Javo Tushi Nayana Duti Melile Gave Parana Have Kushi Je Pata Diya Chaliya Javo Shavare Javo Tushi
Maharaj bikele gaibo.
বিকেলের সময় হবে না,
Hobe.
বিকেলে ব্রাজিকা
আমি গান গাইবো ও ডিসকোর্স দেবে।
হ্যাঁ,
আমি গান গাইবো ও ডিসকোর্স দেবে।
that is the plan.
Yes.
First he will sing opening song.
Yes.
Acha. And then she will give the discourse.
Yes.
That will be in the library. All right. We don't want to tire you out.
I haven't got the words.
Yeah.
What song did you sing in Hollywood with those girls? You know that.
I'll have to hunt for some words.
No, that's all right. Evening.
Yes, Maharaj.
So evening 7:30 we shall have lecture and song by Prabuddhaprana ji. And tomorrow we shall have a great lecture, Sunday.
It's audacious of us to speak in front of them.
Huh?
We are the direct source of inspiration.
Joy.
Nuns here. I'd love to be a nun, but it may have to be another life.
You have a son.
No, but he's great.
You have your husband.
Well, he's trying to get rid of me.
He has already come. On Monday.
I'm funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, both of them at the same time. This is. This one's loose. There we go.
Are you going on a walk? Yeah, at 5 o'clock? 5:30? 5.
Go to the shop now. Go to the bookshop.
Bookshop.
No.